This is Andy Goodman with Real Estate Recruiting and Coaching Solutions, powered by Leaders Edge Training. And today I'm talking to my real estate agent friends out there, and I want to cover something that comes up a lot in my coaching sessions with real estate agents throughout the United States and Canada, and that's what buyer criteria should I follow in order to work with buyers that will perform? In other words, how do I make good bets on buyers? How do I avoid working with buyers that aren't going to do anything and select the ones that have a likelihood of following through? And it really comes down to how you qualify them in creating standards and valid buyer criteria. And I'm going to give you some of the points that you absolutely want to make sure that are in place, and that'll really increase your chances for getting a result with somebody that you spend time looking for homes for and with. The first criteria is that they're willing to come into the office. Now, I know that if you work with lead generation sites and things, they might require that you go out and meet the buyer at the site. But what I'm going to recommend is that if it's any way possible, you have the buyer come into the office, because either way, you're going to have to find out the same things anyway. When you go to the house, you lose that leverage because it becomes more emotional. And you're going to have to find out the pre-qualification, all this stuff anyway. So it's so much easier to get them into the office and to interview them and to go through a list of questions. And here's where the questions lead you to. You know, obviously you want to find out whether they're pre-qualified, and not just pre-qualified, but pre-qualified with your lender that you trade referrals with that is local. If they're in a competing situation with another buyer and the other buyer works with a local agent and your customer does not have a pre-qualification from a local lender, if all things be equal, the seller's likely to select the other offer. So it's important that they at least have that one in place, even if they have their own pre-qualification. So I always insist on that. So that's the financial qualification. You know, you also want to make sure that they sign a buyer's agent agreement. I'm going to defer to whatever rules there are and what your broker says in your area, but in general, you know, with the lawsuit and everything, that if you don't have a buyer's agreement in place, agent's agreement, that's kind of the kiss of death right now. Another criteria that I look for is that they have a clear and realistic time frame. If they don't express a time frame and everything's vague, well, if we find a house we want and that type of thing, it really does decrease your chances. So you want to look for that time frame, like my lease is up, or I have to find a house by this particular time. That really, really does, again, increase your chances. Another thing I look for is, do they have specific and reasonable needs? Specific needs. They need to find a house because, and that really is part of the motivation that you find out when they come into the office. You've got to ask questions like, what if you can't find a house? And if it's, well, if we can't find a house, we can't find a house, that gives you insight as to what their motivation is. And you want people that not just want to buy a house, you want people that have to buy, or it's a must that they find, or it's non-negotiable. And you know those people when you meet them. And often we spend a lot of time working with people where it's, we know that it's okay if they don't find a house and they let themselves off the hook. So you want that to be an absolute. You also want to make sure that all decision makers are present. A lot of times with younger couples, mom and dad has to be around, and you find that out late in the process, and that sometimes could unsettle the deal. And then I'll give you one other bonus thing I look for, and that's make sure you like them, if that's an option. Life's too short. Work with people that you like to spend your time with. Those are my tips for today. Good luck with those buyers, and see if you can tighten up those criteria and make sure you make good bets on people. Thank you.